7 years after I got divorced, I found out I had HIV. It was a massive blow. But let me go back slightly to what led me to that particular situation. Well, I was 18 when I met my husband, and we got divorced when we were around 30 years old, and I had 3 children, a mortgage, a car, and a full-time job. So I worked really hard to maintain all those things, and after I got divorced, I had to go into that big wide world of dating and socializing, and I hadn't done that since I was 18 years old, and I was now 30. So I remember going to a salsa dancing lesson with a friend of mine, and I got all dressed up and I felt great. I'd done my hair. I remember I had this black dress on, and we walked in. And as I walked in, I saw all these people dancing and the noise and the music, and I felt so overwhelmed. I went into the toilet and I shut the door and I cried. And that was my first time out after being divorced, my first fun time out. But something I did discover around that time is alcohol helped me to not feel so afraid. It boosted my confidence. In fact, what it done was blurred my experiences. So I wasn't in my body. I had this kind of screen up that protected me, and that screen was called alcohol. It made me fun, it made me laugh, and it made me a lot less worried and anxious. So I discovered that would help me. And then I picked up an old habit of smoking again, and I smoked a lot. So on went my life. I went to a few more clubs and dances and different experiences, and the alcohol always helped me. Also, I remember a number of years later, I thought I'd go for a routine check, something called an STD test, a sexually transmitted infections test, and I've never been for one of those. I mean, I wouldn't need to, would I? I was married, and let's not forget, I was a good girl. I was a good Catholic girl, and good girls don't need to go for STI tests, or so I thought. So I went for this test. I remember the woman saying to me that I had HIV, and my world just changed completely. I remember going home and looking at my will to see what my children are going to get when I die, to make sure that they were taken care of, who was going to look after them, would it be my sister? And at that point, I hadn't told anybody. No one knew what was going on. I had to keep this a secret because the shame was just too much to bear. So I carried on. Once I found out I was unable to transmit HIV, and I understood that I'd take 1 tablet a day and I would be fine physically, meaning I cannot transmit HIV. So I was able to have more relationships, I was able to meet people, and I did. And but the alcohol was always there with me. I didn't stop that. So I found out I had HIV, carried on having the alcohol just to keep myself in this, what I call a protection bubble. And after many years, I remember saying to myself, I am tired of being in this drunken, always feeling like I was, hungover. I always felt hungover, especially at the weekends. And sometimes during the week I would drink quite a bit as well. But it was deemed as normal. I mean, everybody drank, I was no different. The only difference was that I was drinking at home alone once the kids were in bed. But I remember saying to myself, I think I'm fed up of this. There must be more to my life. I also remember thinking, I've got this HIV, I need to take medication. If I carry on drinking and smoking and not looking after myself, I might attract more sorts of illnesses like diabetes or cholesterol or something else, and I wasn't getting any younger. I wasn't sure how to go about doing this, so I thought I'd get the help of a coach. So I got a coach, and he really helped me to think about where I want to be and where I want to go and what I want my future to look like. And one of the things that he asked me to do is write things down in a journal. And I remember, and I never told him I had HIV. I mean, I told no one. I didn't tell my kids or anyone. And he told me to write in my journal the things that are on my mind, and I did. And over the weeks, and it's about a month, I was writing, and I never wrote about the fact I was HIV. I never. And then one day I did. I sat there, I opened my journal, I took my pen, and I wrote down, there is something that I need to write in this journal. I need to write down that I have HIV, and I want to tell my children, but I don't know how. And as I was writing, I had the tears coming down my face, and they fell onto my journal. And I shut the journal and I closed my eyes and I said to myself, I have to tell the truth. So I got out of the chair, I walked into my daughter's bedroom and I said, can I sit on your bed? There's something that I need to tell you. She was about 22 years old or 21 years old at this time. And I sat on the bed and I said to her, I have HIV. And I started to cry, and she opened her arms and she hugged me and she held me and she told me everything was going to be okay. And she said to me, Mum, why didn't you tell me? And I said I felt so ashamed because it was my job to look after you. You're the child, I'm the parent. I didn't want to burden you. I didn't want to burden you with my burden. I wanted to be there for you. Not long after that, I told my two sons, and their response was, well, it's not that deep, Mum. You could have just told us. So, after that experience of telling my children I was living with HIV, I felt so much more confident to look after myself. Because this was 10 years after I got diagnosed. 10 years after I got diagnosed, I found the confidence. I found it within me to tell my children. And their response back to me was put yourself first and look after yourself. And that's something that I hadn't been doing since I got divorced. Probably even before then. I hadn't been looking after myself. So after that, I started to practice yoga on a regular basis, and then I became a yoga teacher. I meditated, and then I teach meditation, and I became vegan. I started to change my diet, and I now show people how to cook vegan meals. I completely changed my career. I no longer work in offices, and I work for myself. The reason that I got to that stage was because I started to invest in myself. I started to put myself first. So if there's a message that I want to give people out there who are particularly people who are going through divorce, and that is, put yourself first. It's so important, especially if you have children. It's okay to invest in your well-being, because if you need to be there for your children, you need to be there for yourself first. Some of the things that I've also learned is about balance, how important it is to balance. Yes, it's fine if you want to have, some alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, or vices, whatever gets you through, but do so in moderation. Also, it's about staying present, because this is what present means. There's a saying, a Shakespearean saying, yesterday is the past. The future is yet to unfold. But at the moment, the present is a gift. And that is why it's called the present. When you're present, you don't worry so much. You don't worry about what's going to come in the future, about what's happened historically. It's all about the here and now. Now, the stigma associated with HIV kept me in the future. I was worried about what somebody was going to say. I was worried about what my children was going to say. I was worried about my friends, my colleagues, strangers, boyfriends. I was worried so much about all those things. But when I was writing my journal, I was fully present. I was present writing. I wasn't thinking about the past, the future. I was in the here and now. And that gave me what I needed to tell my children something that I had kept secret for 10 years. So, one of the tips that I'd like to give is maybe get yourself a journal and start writing. Maybe get yourself a coach if you need that support. There are so many different support offerings out there on YouTube, and there are books. Some of my greatest teachers have been books, and I made the time to read. At one point, reading was a pleasure. It was something. It was I had to find time to do it because I didn't have time, because I had too much other things that I needed to do. I had to cook, I had to work, I had to look after my staff, I had to look after my kids, I needed to look after my partner, my husband. But I never really looked after myself. I will say to you, I am now in the best place that I have ever been. I remember going to see my consultant, and he said to me, I don't know how you do it, but your immune system is up here. It's better than mine. You are so unbelievably healthy. Well, I got like that because I decided that I need to put myself first. And I needed to understand that I can only be a good partner to somebody else. I can only be a good mother. I can be a good friend, and I can be a good work colleague if I look after myself and I invest in myself. So with that, I will end here, and I wish you the best in your journey. Thank you for listening.